Good morning. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So in the last class, uh, we have discussed about two models called RAD, Rapid Application Development Model, and Spiral Model. Okay. Anyone have any query? Model. If no, then we will move to the next model. These models are very important. Okay, you have to understood about the model, its application, its advantages and disadvantages, when you have to use this model, in which type of software, which model is more suitable. Anyone have any query?
No, sir.
Then let's start with the next model, that is called V model. So what is V model? So basically, the V model is also referred as verification and validation model. And it follows the same sequential process like waterfall model. But in waterfall model, the basic difference of waterfall model and this V model, although both follow the same sequential process, the basic difference is that in V model, after completion of the each phase or each stage, the testing is done. That means in V model also you have to complete one process, one phase to start the another phase. So similarly in V model also, you have to complete one phase, then only you can start the next phase. But the difference is that in V model, once you complete one phase, the testing will occur. But in waterfall model, it is not like that. But here, after each phase, testing will occur. This is the difference between V model and waterfall model. But the V model also follow the same sequential process like the waterfall model. Okay? And this V model, as I mentioned, it is known as a verification and validation model. Can anyone tell me what is verification and what is validation? Verification and validation. You must know what does it mean. What is verification and what is validation? Nikhil, what is verification?
Uh, to verify the proper execution of the program.
Verify the proper execution of the program. Prosenjit, what is verification?
So to check,
What?
to check whether the software confirms the specification.
Anyone else? Jitul? Jitul, are you there? Jitul, are you there? Bhargav,
Yes, sir.
what is verification?
Sir, the process of establishing the accuracy of something or validity of something.
Okay, then what is verification? Validation.
Sir, the मतलब ये কি বুলি কয়, the action of checking, check কৰাটো আৰু, proving the validity of something.
Hello. Hello, sir.
Yes, Jitul.
Sir, মই অথনি কৈ আছিলো, sir, audible নাছিলে নেকি মোৰ?
নাই, মই শুনা নাই তোমাৰ ভইচটো।
sir. Sir, verification বুলি ক'লে আমি মানে যিটো product আমি develop কৰিছো তাৰ actually software requirements বা product requirements fulfill কৰিছো নে নাই সেইটো বুজাব verification. But in validation আমি actually customer needs satisfy কৰিছো নে নাই সেইটো বুজাব।
Now, what is the difference between them? In one, you have mentioned that in verification, we are verify whether we meet the software requirements or not. Is it? And in validation, you have mentioned whether it verify whether we meet the customer requirement or not. Because I think both are quite same, because based on the customer requirements, we are preparing the software requirements list, and if a software are satisfies the requirements, it obviously satisfy the customer requirements also.
Uh, no, sir. Actually, in verification, we are following the feasibility or the documents that we analyze. So we are following the documents. So we are satisfying. We are actually inquiring if it is satisfying the feasibility study the requirements. But in validation, we are actually checking if it is satisfying the customer needs. So means sir, first to আমি check কৰিম যিটো document prepare কৰিছিলো requirements সেইটো মতে হৈছে নে নাই, সেইটো verification হ'ব। আৰু validation
Okay.
sir actually customer যিটো বিচাৰিছে সেইটো হৈছে নে নাই চাম।
So in simple terms, yes, whatever you have said, it is okay. But in simple terms, how you can differentiate verification and validation? The first thing is, when you start developing a software, two things you have to remember. First thing is, what is the procedure to develop the software, and what will be the end product. That means, what are the operations this software must be able to do. Now, in verification, what we do, in verification, we verify whether we follow the proper way of develop the product or not. Because see, in life, suppose in everyone wants to earn money, but to earn money, there are some procedures. There are some legal and illegal procedures, and all of you want to earn money. That is the truth. Okay? But see, there are different ways of earning money. There are some legal method and illegal method. Okay? When you are in a legal method, you have to when you have a lot of money, when you are going to deposit in the bank, they need to verify whether the source of the money is valid or not. That's why we have white money and black money concept. So similarly, in software development also, once you able to develop the software, the next point will arise at whether you follow the appropriate path or not to develop the software or not. And this verification is the process using which we can verify that yes, whatever the outcome or whatever the end product will get, whether it meets the requirement or not, it is something else. But till the end, the developers follow the process. They did not use any other way to develop the product. They simply follow the actual path which need to be followed while developing the software. The first thing is that means whether your money is white or black. Forget about the amount. Till now, the amount is not the main factor. Main factor is whether how much money you have. It does not matter. Whether the process using which you have earned this amount of money, whether the process is valid or not. If valid, if you have 100 crores, no one can do anything with you. And if the process is not valid and you have 100 rupees also, then some actions may be taken against you. That in verification, the process is verified. In simple terms, the process is verified, whether you follow the actual process or not. Now in validation, that means we are going to validate that once you got a green signal from verification that yes, this software is developed according to the rules and regulations. Then let's see whether the softwares are able to meet its requirement or not. Because if the software is not able to meet the requirements, nobody is going to use it. That means in validation, what they do, they simply analyze the functionality of the software. That means these are the in requirement section. We have the list of requirements. Now it validates whether the software meets the requirements or not. This is called verification and validation. In verification, we verify the process. In validation, we validate the functionality of the software. Okay. Now, is it clear to everyone?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes,
The
yes,
next
sir.
point is, yes. Okay. Then let's move to the next point. That is, the next question is when to use. Since in the definition itself, we mentioned that it is similar to waterfall model. I have also mentioned the difference. Right? It is similar to waterfall model. That means it represents that this model is useful when the requirements are well defined. In waterfall also, when the requirements are well defined, then only we go for a waterfall model, because later we cannot change it. Here also, the requirements should be well defined. And in this model, after every phase, we have to do the testing. That means it will consume more amount of time. That's why this life cycle model, this life cycle model is basically used for small and medium sized project. And since it is for small and medium sized project, obviously it is again very useful for simple technical requirements or common technical parties. Means for complex, the basic conclusion of this, that for complex project, this model is not suitable. It is basically for simple and easy projects or small or medium size projects. In the advantage, also obviously it is easy to understand. I will share the notes at the end of the SDLC models. Okay, I have prepared all the notes at the end. When we complete all the models, then at the end we'll share the important points. So basically, what are the advantages? Basically, it is easy to understand, and testing is done before coding also. That means once you do the code, that means that if you have to say make any changes, it will take more time to change the code. But here testing is done after each and every phase. That means if you have to do any changes, you have to make any changes, then it will be easy to make it. Then the next question is, since it is mentioned that it follows the same concept like waterfall model, that is sequential process, then it is similarly useful when the resource is well defined for small project. Then that it is almost similar to waterfall model. Then why we need this model? If it is similar to waterfall model, not 100%, but why we need this model? The main point is that in waterfall model, testing is done at a specific stage only, or at a specific phase only. But here, testing is done after completion of each phase. So that means there's a more chance to achieve the actual software. Because if in testing phase you found any error in requirement phase or something like that, you cannot go back and correct it. That means you have to start from the beginning. But here, after uh, each phase the testing is done, that means if there is any error or any correction, you can easily do that. So from that point of view, it saves a lot of time and increase the probability of success. Okay. Another advantage is it is works fine with the small projects. Then in this disadvantage, it is very rigid and least flexible. Means it is not flexible. Like suppose in spiral model, you will find that there is some flexibility. Flexibility in the sense that you are aware of each and every phase. That means spiral model, suppose you find that what is happening in coding, what is happening in design, in every phase you have some idea, the flexibility. But here it is least flexible. Similarly, not good for complex projects. Not good for complex projects. Okay. Then if any changes occurs in the mid of the development during the testing, that means you have to update all the documents. That means all the documents means the requirement analysis document also and the testing document also. This is called V model. What is V model? What are the operations executing in V models? When to use V models, and what are the advantages and disadvantages? Is it okay? Can we move to the next model?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. The next model is incremental model. it is when we discussed this model, we found that it is somewhere we can relate it with RAD model, RAD model. Because in this model, the entire development, that means the entire development of the software is divided into multiple individual modules. And each module will follow the entire process of development. That means basically, till now, whatever model we have discussed, whatever software development model we have discussed, in each and every model, what happened? They develop the software, the entire software, by considering it as a single entity. In RAD model, they divided into some modules, but the modules are within the software itself. But in incremental model, what they do, they divided the entire software into individual models, and each model will perform the entire process of development. That is from the feasibility study to maintenance or implementation, actually implementation and integration. After implementation, it will combine together and delivered as a single product. So that means in incremental model, what they do, they simply divided the whole development into some multiple models, and each model needs to go through the entire process of development. That is from starting from requirement analysis to the implementation phase. That means basically this model is useful for long-term development. And since we are planning to develop, or we are planning to involve in a long-term development, obviously this model is very much useful for the huge projects. Because in this model, what they do, they divided the entire development into small modules. It means small team is working on it. Then basically, as a whole, although it is a big project, once it is developed into small modules, it will considered as a small project for that particular team only. This is all about incremental model. Now the next point is when we use incremental model. The first point is that when the requirements are superior, that means when we have a huge list of requirements, where we have complex requirements, then in that case we must follow this model. Similarly, when we are planning to develop a, or where we are planning to involve in a lengthy development project, and again when the software team are not very well skilled or trained, that means for startups or for new type of software development, they can go for an incremental model, because here it divided into subgroups. Similarly, when a customer demands a quick release of the product, that means out of the entire requirements, uh, if the client requires that I need this portion immediately so that I can start my work, and gradually you added more features. So indeed, in this case also we can go for incremental model, or similarly we can prioritize the requirements also, and based on priority we can start the development and accordingly start the production. So in that situation we can go for incremental model. Next is advantages. The first advantage is that error are easy to recognize. Yes, obviously, because it is divided into small modules, and when we have to concentrate only a small portion of the code, then it will be easier to find out the error. Similarly, easier to testing and debug, more flexible. The client gets important functionality early. As I mentioned, we can prioritize the work, and accordingly the developer team can deliver the product on priority base. The disadvantage is that need a good planning. Obviously, when you have a huge project and when you are divided the whole project into subgroups and give some priority, then a good action plan must needed. If you are not able to plan your action in a good way, that means at the end you are not able to deliver the proper product. The cost is very high, or not very high, the cost is high. Obviously, we are involved in a long-term development, cost will be obviously high. Then, as I mentioned, you need a good action plan. Similarly, well-defined module interfaces are needed. Because once you get the customer requirements, you are going to divide the requirements into some models, and you have to be clear about the models, then how you are going to uh, define the model. Okay? This is all about incremental model. Okay, is it clear? Shall I move to next model? Okay. The next model is Agile model, Agile development model. So what is Agile model? The model basically follows an approach based on iterative development. What is iterative development? First of all, you have to know what is iterative development. Can anyone tell me what is iterative development? किसको मिला था ये मॉडल? एजाइल मॉडल किसको मिला था? एजाइल मॉडल किसको मिला था? नो रेस्पॉन्स, किसी को नहीं मिला था क्या? आज जो प्रेजेंट है उसके बीच में से किसको मिला था? किसी को मिला था या नहीं मिला था? डेविड एंड सेंगलिम। ओके, सेंगलिम, सेंगलिम, आर यू देयर? So basically, what is agile model? It is another type of model which follow a iterative approach. Yeah. So in this process, what happened? They divided the project into different time slots or time boxes, small frames, and they are planning to execute a portion of the software within this time frame. And for this, they are doing all the required uh, execution. Okay? That means small iteration. In one iteration, they develop this portion of the. They are not going to divide anything. Just they assume that they are not assume that they plan that within this time frame, I'm going to develop this portion. Within this time frame, I'm going to develop this portion. So accordingly, they have in this model, software is going to develop. So in agile method, breaks tasks into small iterations or parts do not directly involve long-term planning. We can also say that in agile, the tasks are divided into time boxes or small time frames to deliver specific features for release. Then when to use agile model? When to use agile model? The first point is when the requirements are rapidly changing or frequently changing. So that means you cannot do the research requirement analysis for the entire project because at any time the requirement may change. So better you develop a portion where the requirement phase within a time frame. Accordingly, once one product will develop, and based on this, you can go for the next one. That means when there is a high possibility of changing the requirement frequently, then we follow this agile model. When we have a highly qualified and experienced team of development, because it is something like that. Forget about everything. So right now, within this time frame, develop this one. So accordingly, do the all research. Because for this, we need a expertise team. and it is useful. It is very much useful for small type of project. Advantages: frequently deliverable. That means phase by phase we can deliver. Face-to-face communication with client. That means for every time frame, after every time frame, the developers are communicating with the client so that they can get the updated requirements, efficient design methodology. Anytime change is acceptable, because all software development model does not support this one. That means at some point some softwares allow it, but in Agile, anytime changes are acceptable. It reduces total development time. Then disadvantages are something like that. Sometimes, because in this model it does not follow, not exactly, but it may skip the formal documentation. So sometimes it may create some chaos. And once the next disadvantage is that once the project is completed and after some time there is any error occur, then due to the lack of the documentation, the maintenance maybe create some trouble, because maintenance is done based on the existing records, but here it's not, proper documentation is not maintained. So that's why sometimes in maintenance it may create some trouble. So this is called Agile model. So today we have discussed incremental, Agile, and V model. So any confusion in these three model? Anyone have any query? Anyone have any query in this three model?
No, sir.
Okay, I'll continue in the next class because the meeting will going to end, and the next class I will share the notes of all these models. Okay. Okay. Thank you, everyone.